Everything has changed.
I don't know. It sounds like he's crazy.
I'm not crazy.
Very nice to see you. So listen, I've seen the whole series, and we are going to do a spoiler interview because let's do a spoiler conversation.
I say it times 2.
Right. So listen, how am I going to start this? What do you think happens with Ryan and Amanda? And let's start with that. What do you think happens with Ryan and Amanda?
Well, I'm not even going to talk about that. I mean, because that story is currently being created.
Sure.
So that's just a little too much advanced info. But what I will say is that 2 people who questioned choices that they'd made, hopefully, like all of us, will be shown that they are in the right place. They're in exactly the right place. It doesn't necessarily mean where they are, that universe. It might mean finding each other. It might mean so many different things. But what the show does to me, Steve, is just it articulates that human fear. What if I'd made the other choice? And then it explores it so fully that a lot of us don't even have a little too much fear to be like, okay, what if I really think about what would have happened? So Blake and Jackie do this for us, and then they come to this, to me, very beautiful conclusion of gratitude and things how they should be. I found it to be the most like entertaining therapy session ever to be involved with this project, and I think the show is possibly the best thing I've ever been a small part of. I think it's gorgeous, and I think it's also helpful. But is it entertaining?
Yeah, I was all in. What's funny is I asked Blake. He was very open about a lot of things, but when I started asking about Ryan and Amanda and how Ryan found her is when he completely closed off, because I get the vibe if the show were to get more, if Apple said let's do more, that your character and her would be maybe the focus. I got the vibe because he would not talk about it.
I see.
Well, so I'll ask you, how do you think Ryan found her at that restaurant or wherever that was? Or do you not know?
Yeah, I know. But it's that's part of the story that hasn't been told to everyone yet. So if you were asking me, like, the reveal of that isn't supposed to be. It's like Orson Welles. Like you're not supposed to know that yet. Simply. And so it would take away from your enjoyment.
Do you think Ryan will be happy because he's in this ideal world and he's a really smart dude? Do you think he would be happy living in that world?
I think a lot of us don't understand. A lot of us are really fearful of change. And so I've chosen a career like a lot of us to be like, okay, whatever happens, I'm going to roll with. And most people, for instance, my father, sending him up in the most ideal situation for him and his health and his well-being, is right now resisting it for something that would make him sadder, but it's familiar. And so a lot of us, when faced with a beautiful proposition or a beautiful option, all we see is that it's not what we know. And so we resist it. So part of Ryan's journey is figuring out the truth of that. It's something we all have to grapple with, and that's what his journey is about in that element, in that multiverse.
Just to let you know, I'm not running this interview till way down the road.
Cool.
So you don't have to. Yeah, I just want to make sure you realize that. Do you think that he will possibly recreate the serum and try to go into the box, or do you think he will be happy in that world?
I feel like you're busting my balls here, Steven. I feel like you're knocking on doors that have do not disturb signs on them.
This is my job. I got to keep on asking these questions.
Go for it. Keep going. I'll keep putting the do not disturb sign on my door.
Okay. So one of the cool things about the show, and this is something you can talk about, is that the show infer or makes the audience think that the Jason that gets home is the Jason that left. But in actuality, it could easily be an alt version of Jason that made one different choice or and also it could be a slightly alt version of the world that he left, but like Jason won't know and the world won't know. It's like it makes you. It's a pretty deep, like it can make you think.
1,000%, and that is all of the things you're expressing are quantum theoretical possibilities beyond a shadow of a doubt, especially when we're setting up the superposition and how close things can be and not be the same. It's all a possibility. Whether or not that's our storyteller's like intention, I would say, I would just speculate that maybe it's not about that nuance specifically, almost like those aberrations from what our story is. But I'll tell you what, it's a possibility, just like all of this is, just like all the things we're talking about are a possibility. So sure. I
asked Blake, and he makes it, he wants the audience to, he feels that it was the Jason that left and he's made it back to his world. But I am saying that there's a better, like a very strong possibility it is not the Jason that left, and it is not the world that he originally, you know what I mean?
I do. I would say odds wise, you're dead on. And then, but narratively, I'm kind of in Blake's camp.
And I think most people want that to be true. I just think that that's one of the cool things about the show.
Absolutely.
Is that it lets the audience decide. And I'm saying I don't think it's the same guy that left.
I love it. I love it. I mean, it's very possible. The first episode of season 2 is the Jason we've come to know and love pulls a V and his face splits and he's a lizard. You know, it's very possible. And I would root for that, man. I would stand up and cheer.
Yeah. If someone were to actually offer you the ability, offer you the ability to go in the box and have the possibilities of visiting a much better version of our planet, but at the same time, knowing what can happen that you might not, possibly ever get back to the actual world you left, would you be willing to go in?
I would say my personality is, I would be up for trying that. But it's not born out of any desire to escape this reality. It would be exploratory. So yeah, I would try it. There's no place in my life. I've shed most of my, okay, what if I'd done that? And I've made sense of the majority of down times, of question eras in my life, of like, what if I could have avoided that? I've made sense with what has happened since, and the value I've gained, the information I've gained, the perspective I've gained. Literally, the only kind of fantasy I still have about switching something out always involves me bringing the knowledge I have now back to a younger version of myself. That's the only thing. And it's simply about life experience and understanding how simple things are that I think are complicated at a young age. But as far as like avoiding a choice, I was already on my way out of like that human kind of like, oh, if only. And then the show kind of really helped. It was like almost therapy as well as really entertaining. Of like, yeah, no, you are where you should be, and things do happen for a reason. As trite as some people might think that, I think it's a really sound philosophy, and I think Blake's story backs it up.
Last thing for you, you've been working for a really long time as an actor. When did you feel like you'd made it where you could pay your rent and make a living being an actor?
Well, because I have very little overhead. I'm not drawn to lights and things and clangs or cars or clothes. So I've never had like stuff I need. So I've been able to really kind of choose the projects starting maybe 3 or 4 years in where, no, I wasn't locked in. I think maybe Breakout Kings was the first time I did a series where it's just like, oh, okay, so I seem to be marketable even to like a wider scale than popping in and being ridiculous or off-putting or rakish or whatever I was doing mostly. And then I was like, oh, people can see value of me giving an arc. So Breakout Kings was probably 2010-ish, 2009, 10. That was when I was, oh, okay, so I am a part of this community. But it was 2 or 3 years that I was just like, oh, okay, so I can go and make a fart noise, and people, for whatever reason, find it compelling. So I seem to be able to eke out work. But I'll never feel like, I'm locked in to anything. I'm always going to be happy telling stories and whatever. If this industry's had enough, I'll figure out. I love theater. I'll go wherever it makes sense to me. So yeah, I feel good here, but you never know what's going to happen, really.
Believe me, I've seen the show called Dark Matter. I know.
Yeah.
Listen, I got to wrap. I'm just going to say congrats on the series, and I really do hope it's a really big hit.
Thanks, man. I hope to see you again soon. It's always a pleasure.
Right back at you. Have a great day, man.
Thanks, brother. You too.